Welcome to NCPDP Unscripted, the podcast where healthcare meets real talk. Each episode, we will dive into unscripted conversations with industry leaders, changemakers, and innovators, discussing the challenges, breakthroughs, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't hear anywhere else. Whether you're on your morning commute or taking a break between meetings, settle in because it's time to get unscripted.
Miranda, welcome to NCPDP Unscripted. Super excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just left an event called NCPDP colLAB, and I definitely want to dive into that. But before we get into that, I'd love to just kind of tell our audience who you are. I know you've been a long-time NCPDP member, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so Miranda Rochol, I currently am at Prescryptive Health, and I lead our e-prescribing network business at Prescryptive. But you're right, I have been part of NCPDP for a very long time, all the way back to the early 2000s when e-prescribing, I like to say before it was cool. And I was at Walgreens at the time, and I just learned a lot. And one of the things that I tell my kids now is, I didn't realize how valuable it was in my early 20s on learning that and everything that I did learn. And I'm very thankful and grateful for everything that the NCPDP community has taught me over the past almost 20 years.
Wow, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Wonderful. So you are now leading, your task group lead for our PTI, which is Pharmacy Technology Innovation Task Group. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that task group?
Yeah, so what we do is we actually look at innovative technology within inside of the pharmacy landscape. One of the topics that we're discussing right now is actually AI in pharmacy, which is a hot button item. Is it going to be used for clinical? Is it going to be used for inventory? You know, how is it going to potentially impact the practice of pharmacy? And we're looking at how we could bring speakers in and introduce different ideas and concepts to the NCPDP community as well. And then we're also helping to lead or co-lead the colLAB effort with inside of NCPDP, what we did today too.
Great. So let's talk about that. So NCPDP colLAB was a brand new kind of effort that we started today in an initiative, day before work group meetings, to bring folks together to collaborate. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts on that, maybe just describe what we did for the audience.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think a lot of people here at NCPDP want is more of truly collaboration across our different areas. Many of us are competitors, and because we are competitors, we have to be very careful and cautious on things that are being discussed. But at the end of the day, we still have similar problems and similar challenges to try to overcome. So having the ability to discuss that with inside of a collaborative environment is really, really important. Today we went through a patient use case, and it was an asthma story of a patient. And we interacted across 3 different areas: prior authorization, real-time pharmacy benefit, and product locator. And we had over about 100 people registered, 60-ish maybe that attended, which for the first time I think is fantastic. A lot of really good conversation. It lasted about 4 hours. And each area had a readout afterwards of some of the things that they discovered through their conversation.
That's great, and I love that. I mean, NCPDP, right? Obviously, we're standards development organization, but I always think of us as a convener. So I feel like that's now giving folks the opportunity to be able to do that. So in your role as task group lead and now leading colLAB, what do you think? Like, how do you see this kind of building up in the future, and what can people be? How should they be thinking about this initiative?
I would love to eventually have this be more of an accelerator type of format. I think that we have an opportunity as an industry to set the stage for what we're going to do next. And inside of pharmacy, we are a little behind the 8 ball on some of the areas in healthcare. We're seeing a lot of federal changes in motion right now, and we need to make sure that we're ready for them. So if there's an opportunity for us to try, play, test, demo, do things so that we can try to experiment across the standards, that is definitely an area that I want to encourage and see us do. I think the other thing that I would love to see us do is see how we can work across standards. So we have our standards, which have been used and are incredibly important, but the medical side of the community has HL7 and fire, and being able to figure out how to collaborate across those is also really important. And then I think my third thing is my own personal bandwagon of how do we incorporate the patient more.
Yes.
I think that we have a huge, massive opportunity to have the patient involved in everything that we do. And I don't think there was a dramatic necessity up until recently. I think that up until recently, we just needed a standard.
Yeah.
And now we're at the phase of pharmacy standards where we need to figure out how to involve that patient.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And, more and more I'm hearing about companies that are saying, we need to get the prescription to the patient. I think we lost that when we used to, write a piece of paper, right?
Yep.
And I could go anywhere. And
Yep.
I think that's so important. And I think the use cases we had today, too, back to your point about, kind of working and collaborating with HL7, I think the real-time benefit check, it was a consumer-facing
Yep.
based on fire. EPA is the other area where we're starting to hear, even though the fire standards are on the EHR side, how do you pull that data from the EHR to put into our standard to make sure that the patient is able to get their prescription filled and the PA is complete. So I think that's a really, really important point. And, hopefully we can continue to collaborate, right, with HL7
I
on
agree.
those things. So
I did actually hear a lot of patient conversation in the tables today. I went to several different tables throughout the time. PA, they did discuss how do we get this information to the patient? How do we have the ability to have the patient initiate it? Like they got a new plan. It's a new plan year, same therapy. How do they initiate it? Product locator. We have a pilot starting that is patient-facing, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
And obviously RTPBC was patient-facing as well. So really great conversation.
Yeah, I think that patient thing, it's always been interesting to kind of, I think a lot in the past we used to always think, we would talk about the patient, but it was always very pharmacy focused. So it is nice to see that shift. So again, in kind of your role with Prescryptive, I think you guys are doing some innovative and creative things as well. How are you thinking about NCPDP, with your organization and kind of staying involved and doing things?
So obviously for Prescryptive, maybe not obviously, but for Prescryptive, we truly believe that the patient is center of everything. And we want to empower the patient with transparency. And we want to be able to allow them to have their prescription and to see what their cost might be and what other programs might exist out there to help reduce overall cost. We also want to encourage and work with employers to try to reduce their cost as well. So it's looking at it from a prescription basis, not just from one aspect of the prescription basis. And because of that, it's really important to stay involved at the standards level and also to see how we might be able to help have a focus on the patient inside of the standards and how we might be able to interact across standards too.
Yeah, no, that's great. So other thoughts on PTI or colLAB? I think we're planning on continuing these events, as we go forward at different work groups. I know, you were talking about some ideas that you wanted to share. Just thoughts on kind of what we can be doing with colLAB going forward.
Yeah, I am excited to potentially see if we can have a conversation around Work Group 20. So Work Group 20 is our coordination of care work group that I co-lead with Crystal. And I think that it would be really great if we introduced colLAB and the concept of colLAB potentially maybe even in lieu of Work Group 20 so that we could have that time and that space on the agenda and not have to have people fly in a day early or something along those lines. So I'm going to start that conversation today. Thank you for allowing me to bring that up. But I also think that there's an opportunity for us to really dig into the other use cases and see if we can help to hone in on the questions that we're hoping to have the room look at and consider, and not, isolate or prevent other questions, but as a starting point, so that we can continue digging in on how we can collaborate across everything.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, we did start Work Group 20 as kind of a work group that could focus on workflows versus a specific standard. And I think a lot of the conversations that we were having today kind of pulled that out.
Exactly.
So that's an interesting idea. I love that idea. So, all right. So as we wrap up, any final thoughts on PTI, how folks can get involved, how to get us feedback on the colLAB?
Absolutely. Our PTI task group is once a month. It's on Wednesdays, I think the third Wednesday of the month. Don't quote me on that. I think it's the third Wednesday of the month, and we would love to have participation. We are continuously talking about innovative things. colLAB was discussed during our task group meetings, but also all kinds of AI components as well. colLAB, the next one that we're tentatively planning is going to be August in Denver, and looking forward to that. I would love to see what people in the NCPDP community have as ideas, what they want to have discussed, what areas of the standards they want to focus in on and drill in on, and how they could potentially incorporate non-members into joining us as well. This colLAB was free, and we did have non-members join us today, which I think is fantastic. But there's a lot of innovative companies out there that are not involved in NCPDP, and maybe this will help to show them why they should be involved in NCPDP, and I would really love to see more participation from non-members also.
Yeah, no, that's a great call out, because it was open, it was free, and we did have quite a few non-members as well, so that's great. So good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Miranda, and excited to see where we can take this initiative going forward.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for helping us with colLAB.
Yeah,
That's great.
Of course, yeah.
That's a wrap on this episode of NCPDP Unscripted. Thanks for joining us as we explore the voices and ideas driving innovation in healthcare. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have topic ideas you'd love to hear us cover, we want to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay unscripted. Our podcast is proudly sponsored by Marks Productions.